All right, we're going to start a little earlier. Hi,
Hi.
Lydia. Oh, this is great. So welcome. All right, and we are all hooked up with the Untitled Horsemanship Facebook page. So great. So you should be showing up there. I'm going to refresh my Facebook page and we're just checking everything real quick. Make sure that we are all there. Yes. Okay. Awesome. All right. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Claudia, Daphne. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. Okay. Well, today's guest speaker is Lydia. And how do you pronounce? You use two different last names. Which one?
I am Lydia Kading Primavera. So my maiden name is Kading.
All right.
My married name is Primavera.
Okay, gotcha. I've been there. You all know I've been Caroline Vallant, which is my maiden name, Ryder, then Caroline Vallant Best, and now I'm just Caroline Best. Okay, took my married name. All right, well, welcome back everyone to Everything Horses and More weekly podcast. We are here to educate, liberate, and inspire horse owners around the world. Today's topic is How the Horses Found Their Way to Me by Lydia. So she has a really unique and amazing, beautiful story to share. Lydia, let me know if this works for you. I was going to read your story first, and there's a couple of spots that I've kind of highlighted, and then, I'm going to read it. Would that work for you? And then I'll ask you to come in and kind of pick it apart and talk more about it. Does that work?
Yep, I'm ready. However you want to go about it.
Okay. All right. This is a really, really cool story, you guys. And I could cry just talking about how this happened for Lydia. I've experienced things like this, and it's so hard when I talk about it if other people haven't experienced it, because it's kind of like, yeah, sure, Caroline, that's a bunch of baloney. It's how could that ever happen? And I think the biggest takeaway from this story for me that really hits home and touches my heart and still amazes me to this day and all the time is how horses can read our minds. And when Lydia sent this story to me a while ago, I think before the holidays, it's been a while, I had tears in my eyes, and it resonated so strongly with me because I've had many similar experiences, but none this, I can't say none this profound, but this is really profound. I've had these types of experiences with my own personal horses, but you had this experience with your personal horse and other horses. I hope that people really start to believe how amazing horses are on such a higher level of consciousness and enlightenment. And we have no science to back this up, except that the horse has 2 layers to their brain and the human has 3. So how could the horse have a higher level of consciousness when they don't have the 3rd layer to their brain, which is, responsible for high cognitive abilities and analytical abilities and dreaming and language. Horse just doesn't possess that. Yet, how do horses read our minds? And how can your horses know where you are hundreds of miles away and days away from returning? That's been my experience when I've traveled for a week to 2 weeks at a time for my work, and my core Liberty, when Smokey was alive, and we have Legend and Sundance still, they've unlocked the gates, they've started running up and down the barn, half an hour before I come home, just like dogs. So it's kind of like that sixth sense that what do we call it? Sixth sense, or yeah, just like your dog, they just know. And when you're so connected, it's really wild. And then we're going to bring it back into a full circle, because that's kind of where the, mastery membership method, you can dive in as deep as you want to go with this method, because it is part of a mindset, an attitude, an enlightenment, a path, a guide. And as long as you're open and you believe, all of these things can happen, and they can happen every day. Every day I experience my horses reading my thoughts, obviously my heart, it being so connected, and it has nothing to do with technique, has nothing to do with work. It just, real quick, this is a neat little story. Before we came on to this podcast, I had to run up to my house, and I was coming back, and Legend was lying down in the sun by himself. He didn't have anybody else with him. And so I knelt down and I gave him some lovins and some kissing, and I got up to leave, and he just, looked at me like, where are you going? So I stayed there for a little bit longer, and yeah, I got a lump in my throat and started to well up with tears, because I just love him so much. And I'm so full of love and gratitude. And as I was leaving the gate, and I got two other knickers from two other horses. So one was Lydia, Janine's horse, watching me. And then Lovey was through the barn on the other side of the gate, by the water trough. And she too had like her radar ears, which are huge, on me, and nickered at the same time. But Lovey nickered 3 times for me. And so I walked over to Lovey. I was going to ignore, but she nickered 3 times. And it wasn't, it's that nicker that that, they're talking to you, they want you. And so I went over, and she had that soft, closed her eyes, and just put her muzzle to my mouth so I could kiss her and blow into her nose. But I believe, neither one of them could see me loving on Legend, because we were on the side of the barn, and one was in the barn, but they felt that.
Yeah.
So it's just, this happens all the time. I just love this. It makes your work and the things that you learn together easy and enjoyable, really does. So as y'all know, I can go off on tangents. Squirrel! But everything does always come back together. So here we go. I'm going to read this beautiful story, and then Lydia is going to dive in deep with it and talk about her experiences with horses in this story especially. So thank you for the opportunity to share this story. Lydia writes, these experiences happened when a ranch owner asked me to wrangle for guests who rented their ranch. And wrangling means to literally wrangle up, go get, right? Go get horses, Lydia?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's what wrangling means? Okay, just to clarify for you all. Wait, speak up. Hold on, speak up a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, come close.
Wrangle and ride, right? We have to go get them and then tag them up.
Wrangle and... Oh my gosh. Okay, so you are a true wrangler, and you work for the ranch. So she's got to go wrangle them up and get them and ride them.
No experience.
So she writes, as I started to work. Yeah, I'm sorry?
With no experience.
Wait, what was?
No experience.
They have no experience?
I had no experience.
You had no experience?
No.
How many years ago was this?
It started
when this story happened.
This started in 2016. So it's
in 16.
4 or 5 years ago. And I hadn't been on a horse since I was in my 20s, and I'm 61. So I didn't have any experience with horses other than the 2 that I had, a Shetland pony and a mare. And I knew already from that I'm somewhat of a whisperer, which means I'm a listener, not a whisperer, I'm a listener.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You are a listener,
yes.
Which is part of whispering. It's that quiet. It's beautiful.
So go ahead. But I had no experience with other people's horses and putting tack on. I was a bareback rider. I didn't know anything about getting people on horses and riding, other than I was a dive master scuba diving, and I knew how to keep people safe. That was my bottom line. I could do this because of that. And
you had that mindset.
Yes, and then I went on an internet frenzy searching, and I'll get into that too.
Okay, all right. All right, so when this experience happened, you were brand new to the ranch, correct?
Yes.
Yep,
And so was
so
the owner. So was
yes,
the
so,
owner.
oh geez, so the owner and you were brand new. Oh my gosh, so I'll start over. These experiences happened when you were brand new to the ranch and the ranch owner asked you to help go get the horses for the guests who rented the ranch. So Lydia writes, as I started to work with this unpredictable herd that you didn't even know, I knew I needed more than I knew about the language of Equus. So I started researching everyone online I could, and that's when you found me years ago. So what happened, as Lydia writes, was a result of finding the Mastery membership program, which you're going to talk a little bit about, and the online courses in practice, you know, you write practically applying everything I could take in and trying it by studying body language, my body language first. Let's see. And then you said, after watching my body language, everything started to work amazingly. Okay. So it was the second year I really needed to dive into you because the herd doubled at the ranch with some real problematic horses being brought into the ranch and dropped off. I have to tell you, when I asked the owner about his horses, the tack, their history or breed, he knew nothing. His children knew more about their nature, so I started listening to them. This was all the result of two people hoping to live a dream, the ranch owner and me. So basically, and this, you start out with, there's no hay brought in for the herd at this ranch, and it's November. So it's not good enough for me with a new horse. Cochise, right? This is when you got Cochise?
Yes.
Okay. And so you didn't want to keep Cochise there at the ranch because the conditions weren't suitable. So you took Cochise out of out of that situation, and you boarded him 120 miles away in the valley. Mm-hmm. And you write, I returned to spend the winter in Atlanta, Idaho, and this is where you live and where the ranch is too, with my husband who's working snow in the backcountry. So Cochise, your horse, is very happy with his new herd in the valley. He's well cared for and has, but you hadn't seen him for months. Ugh. However, I'm okay knowing he's fine, but the other horses aren't going to be with this hard winter. And they're going to be hungry and eating pine needles and dirt. I'm worried because the foreman has control now, rationing hay out of a large bin for a herd of 9. Holy cow. I would be so stressed out. I'm sure you were.
I was, it was.
So there is no order now.
Caroline,
yes.
There was 4 foot of snow, and I was taking my snow sled because a bale of hay would fit in it because I had goats and I had hay. So I was taking my alfalfa hay over by sled and taking it down to them. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So how far away was the ranch from your house?
I have to tell you, first off, Atlanta, Idaho is up an 80-mile dirt road that is a 1-lane washboard road that skirts along a reservoir and goes into the backcountry up into the Boise National Forest and stops in the Sawtooth National Forest. It's a dead-end road, and the ranch lives at that dead-end road. And so these horses basically were in, and when he didn't bring hay in November, I was like, that road's going to get so bad they might not get any hay. So my horse went out of there, and he was with a nice Mormon family. And we spent the 2 months with those horses, missing Cochise, but still loving them and letting them know that it was going to be okay. And what happened was the ranch foreman had to go down to Boise, that 120 miles away, to my house in Boise. And then I took a house apart that was 130 years old and moved it to this little town. And that's why we were there. And my husband was working for the highway district. And so I came down to Boise to have baby goats and see Cochise. And that's when John called me with that story from the highway district when he came out. And I'm going to let you read that if you'd like.
Oh my.
But it's three.
Oh no, go ahead and keep talking. No, you're good. You keep talking.
So basically, I'm down in Boise, and I'm just getting up to get a cup of coffee. And John calls me at 7 a.m. in the morning, and he says, "You won't believe what just happened." And these horses were in about a 10-acre pasture by the river. So they had willow and trees, and horses like to forage as much as goats do on the higher level of stuff. So basically they had left, it was all hot wired, and they left. And the ranch has two different driveways that meet at one. And then you cross the Boise River on a wooden bridge, and it's uphill. And then it's the highway district. And then you can go down the street to Boise, or you can go up the street into town. And the fire station is right here. And the horses took a left, and the bar is right over there. And then they took a right. They could have gone straight. They took a right. They went up the hill. There's one other stop sign in town. This is a mining town that was established in 1883. So there's only 30 people there in the winter.
Wow.
Yeah. And 60 or 100 in the summer. And it's a four-wheeling fest in the summer, and lots of craziness going on. But anyway, these horses went up to that stop sign, turned right, and my house that I moved up there and was living in was a block up the street, and they went right up to the backyard where I have a little greenhouse.
So they came and found you.
Yes, they came. I wasn't
and
there.
They didn't even know where.
My truck.
They didn't know where you lived. They'd never been.
No, I've driven both trucks to the ranch, and my truck wasn't even there. So there was nothing to tell them that was me, other than, I don't know, smell, intuition. John jumped out of the truck.
No, it's 6 cents.
Yeah, John jumped out of the truck. He followed them in his truck, and he said, "Guys, she's not here." And basically they heard him. He went in to grab some food to feed them. And when he came back, they were already headed down to the ranch the other way, because you can go around the corner and back down the hill. But these
my God,
4 or 5 of them had never even left the ranch before. The little miniature burro or donkey that they brought up, she stayed at the ranch. She didn't follow the herd. But Dave, who was bony and ribs showing and hips showing, had ice on his feet. And he was running up the hill too, past the highway district. And so were the 2 horses that belonged to the ranch foreman. I couldn't even hardly do anything with those 2 horses because I hadn't had any time. His mare was a rattlesnake bitten in the face, and I was just getting to be able to touch her face. And she even came with them. And I know it was cowboy.
They came to find you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, you guys, because they were hungry. Now, how often, and they didn't know where you lived, but they knew how to find you. Oh my gosh. So Lydia, how often were you feeding them? Like, for what length of period of time were you giving them extra food before this happened, before they came to find you?
I did not have a lot of extra food to do that with. So I had to kind of just wait till the big bin was empty, and then I would haul a bale of hay in there until Jay would feed him again. So I might feed him for a couple of days, and Jay would fill the bin, because he had it in his mind that this big stack of hay should last all winter, right? That he brought up there. And he was only going to go put so much in it, to make it last. And
oh my God, that would last maybe a few days with 9 horses.
Yeah, it was horrible.
In winter with 4 feet of snow, and they have to keep warm, so they know they have to keep eating. No, that's total neglect and abuse. I mean, and this was the ranch owner or manager that was feeding them.
But he got all of the permission on what to buy, and the ranch owner basically is from Utah, and his family his extended family is Mormon, and they have owned this ranch since the 1800s and used to breed Shetlands there. And it was failing because family members weren't participating. And what happened was Steve had a dream, and he bought the ranch, and he wanted to rent it for family reunions and allow those people to ride his horses. And when I asked him about his horses, he didn't know where they came from. He didn't know what breed. And like you said, he did not know what kind of a bridle or a saddle. And all he said to me was, you need to buy six saddles, 6 bridles, and all of, you need to have everything you need to do this job, and you need to buy insurance. So I did that. And it was not easy. It was not easy either, but I found people, after taking a house apart and moving it, you get very resourceful. So what I did was I had one friend, and I talk about this traditional cowboy who uses his horses hunting all the time. I am always putting it in the chat feature. He is the one that helped me. He had the trailers, he had saddles that I could borrow, he had bridles, and they had horrible bits on the bridles and stuff. And when I got these horses, I was like, oh shit. One of them came in injured, and they were misfits, because they actually have cattle ranches, but these horses are kicked off because they're not working horses or whatever anymore. So the first horse was an Appaloosa. His name was Rio, and I'm guessing he was about 22. The owner didn't know their ages. I had to talk them in trimming their feet. And most of the time I paid to have them trimmed and everything with the money I made from the guests at the ranch. And he had a rule, Caroline, you're not going to believe the rule. There was one little corral, and it had these stalls, and then there's hundreds of acres, right? And it's fenced, but I get these 5 horses, and they, I don't know the first year where they were wintered, but the second winter, they wintered in Twin Falls on 100 acres, untouched by people the whole winter. And they were competing with alpaca cattle. And the first year, though, they came in fairly healthy. But Cowboy wasn't rideable for whatever reason, and which was good for me because that meant I only had to take 3 people. And I rode Sundance, the only mare, and she's amazing. And she and Rio were the first 2 that started to trust me, but it was how I started to watch you on YouTube. I had watched the people that you tell me, that we shouldn't follow, Buck Brenneman, and Buck Brenneman came from Monty Roberts style. But the neat thing was,
I know. I'm really going to get it now.
They mentioned Tom Durrance and Ray Hunt. And when you mentioned that, I was like, I'm in, I'm listening. And so basically, I bought my husband bought me the DVDs for Buck Brenneman, and I watched them all winter long. But what I did was I started watching you on YouTube and watching the relationship you had with the horses. And when these horses came in, I decided that I had to become one of the herd. And Sundance and Rio made me that. Smoke was one of those horses that he's black and brown, and he had a hole in his forehead the size of a golf ball. And when I asked the owner about this, or the kids, none of them knew how he even got it. And the owner didn't even know, he hadn't even noticed he had one, but you couldn't even touch him up by his ears or on his pole because of that injury. So each one had issues, but when I saw you doing what you did, I was like, this can be done, and I have to earn their trust and their respect, and it has to come through consistency, congruency, and that was in the rhythm of showing up and being there. It wasn't in how I made them do something. It was, here I am, I'm here for you, here's some grain.
In the mechanics.
Yes. You said it's not.
Yeah, often all of the training is the mechanics. And like you said, how good you can make your horse look, which is of course how good you make yourself look. So it's all ego driven, really. And it's not truly about the connection. So you're talking about watching my videos and seeing this connection and relationship where the horse wants you, considers you, therefore you will become part of their herd. They
Yes.
will want you. And that just opens, just like it's trust, you know, when you really like someone and want them to be your friend, yeah, then it changes everything, doesn't it?
And thank God you talk too much.
Everything.
Thank God you talk too much, because that's how I got the thing. It only takes 15
Thank
minutes
you.
per horse. You know, you say so much between the lines. That's how I got, it's only going to take 15 minutes per horse. And so what I did is I grabbed the first ones first, and they came to me in order. Once I got the first one, the next one would come, and I'd spend 15 minutes grooming, loving, picking up feet, leading, one rein stop, and a love, a hug.
And listening. I
Yes,
think listening, you made that huge point, is listening, paying attention to what your horse is thinking and feeling while you're doing all of this, considering them.
yes. And
It's a game
one of
changer.
them is different. Each one of them was different, and what they needed was different from me. It was so cool. And so this relationship
Yes.
started, and I got my first guests in 2 weeks, and I had gone over my tack and everything, so I knew that was good. What the people didn't like was they're paying for a ride, and I made them show up early, and I made them brush their horse. I would catch them. First, I need to back up to how I got there every day, because I would get up and I would watch a video, whatever I could, and I would get in my truck and I would go down the hill, and I would get to the Boise River on that wooden bridge, and I would stop and I would say the third step prayer, which goes like this: God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self so I can better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, which is knowing nothing, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. And I would say, this is not about you, Lydia. This is about these people and those horses. Now go. And my leg would be shaking on the brake as I would let off the clutch and hit the gas. And I would be shaking all the way to
That's
catch
beautiful.
my first. I would be shaking all the way to catch my first horse. And when Sundance would come to me, I would melt and I would know what to do. And I started to do it. And then the rest would follow. And it went like that. And then when the guests showed up, I had them haltered and tied, and I would make them, each one, spend time with their horse by name, talking to their horse about riding, permission, asking permission if they could go. And then they would do something like this in the corral. Each one would have to do what I did every day, which was go up, say hello, horse handshake always, then come up and stroke the face and the neck to maybe release some endorphins, and then stand in the hugging place to see if they would give that, and then lead their horse around, changing directions and make sure the horse would follow. And they couldn't get on until they did all these things. And at first they were really upset, they were like, no. But after the ride, they were like, oh my God, thank you. So when they unsaddled the horses, I made them tack and saddle, and they had to untack and then brush the horses when they were done. And they were happy.
Oh my, that is amazing.
And it wasn't a tail to nose ride. Their first trail ride.
That changes everything.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, you just literally set them up for such an amazing experience in what they could feel in their heart and what they could tangibly see, and feel changing in their interaction with the horse. That's just fabulous.
And it was fabulous. It was your love and leadership that got me to get to thinking like that. How do I show love and leadership with these guys? And I don't think they had any better choice when they were so uncared for. When I came along and cared for them and gave them everything they needed, they were like, we want her,
Oh yeah. It's, In my experience rescuing so many horses and working with rescues, they are so appreciative. Like the saying, when you rescue the dog from the pound, they are so, or the dog off the side of the street, or my cat Willow as a kitten, half starved. And you talk about spine and hip bones, when I threw my jacket on him and picked him up because he was gonna die within 24 hours. He was a kitten that someone just threw out and tossed on the side of the road. But when you find your beloved animals like that, in such desperation and neglect and near death or starvation, wow, they are so appreciative and grateful, and they look at you with such respect and appreciation, and then of course you can feel it. So I know what that feels like from coming from horses. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I have Joey's that way big time with me.
The first time the ranch owner asked, he brought the horses in and he said, Lydia, you should go for a ride. And I said, who do you think I should ride? And he's like, it probably doesn't matter. Well, I picked Blue. He's a big black and blue gray kind of horse. And it was really interesting because I said, well, how should I go about getting them? And he goes, oh, just grab the four-wheeler and go chase them in. And I was like, no. I'm going to bring this little herd in a town where there's four-wheelers running all over the place, and you want me to go grab a four-wheeler and run these horses into the barn? Yeah, that's not going to happen. So basically, I just went and got.
Oh my gosh.
I was up against a lot, and then he gave me some rules. He gave me some rules. The first two rules were, you can't let them get on a horse on the ranch. The second one, you can't let them get on a horse on the ranch. You have to ride off the ranch, which is a 1/4 mile driveway to get off the ranch. And then there's a fork in the road that goes back to the ranch, the barn, right? So even if I had a crew of kids, walk their horses. We tried it. We did leading down the driveway. We got to the end of the driveway and they tried to get on those horses with that road back to the barn. Wasn't happening. So that's when we started to break. The other rule, the insurance rule, was I couldn't take anybody younger than 12. And I broke them all. And I have to tell you these 2 or 3 stories because they're amazing. I was in the barn loving on the horses. They're all tied up. And this little old lady comes out in one of those mobile wheelchairs, right? And she gets in, there's a breezeway and then there's like a widow's walk. And she gets in there and she gets out of her wheelchair and she's standing on the railing looking at the horses and the sawtooths, which are beautiful. The sawtooths are beautiful. And she says to me, I want to get on a horse and I want to go out there. And I said, she's 110 pounds and she's 93 years old. And I said, well,
oh my gosh,
I'm willing to do this if your kids will help me. Because she had a tear in her eye and she said this, I got married 65 years ago and I've been living on the East Coast in New York City ever since. And I'm a country girl and I haven't been on a horse since I was 20. And I said, well, if you can have your kids do this, I'll do it. And Rio was there. This was the first year. And Rio was there and I decided that it could be Rio because he was really an amazing, sweet guy. And so her kids came down to the barn and we saddled up Rio. And we put her on that horse and she was crying and beaming and her children were standing there to spot her. And I said, if your mom falls, I will kill you. You cannot let your mom, happen to your mother. Anyway, so we got to go around in the corral and she goes, I want to go out there. And I said, I don't think so. But the cute thing was that she kept getting stuck in her wheelchair out in the sandy roads of around the ranch because she kept wanting to get out there.
Yeah. Oh.
It did take her 80.
Yeah. Oh, God, love her. Oh my God.
I took her 83-year-old husband for a 2-hour ride. So But, you know, that's the kind of thing. And then the other really shocking story I have is there was a little 11-year-old girl who was afraid of her family dogs even. And she wanted to get on a horse, but she didn't trust anything. And I told her, I said, I will be there with you and I will be there for you. And if any time you want to get off, we will go back and we will take you off. Well, when we got her on a horse and we got riding, there's this very lucid picture in my mind. She had curly, frizzy hair, and it's flying in the wind as she gallops in to the ranch from the trail, you know. And she looks over at her mom and dad and says, I want a horse too now. And I just started crying. But to me, you know, like,
oh, God love you.
That's what this is about. People came a long way to have this experience. I had somebody show up from China who lived in a subdivision. There was this place where we could stop and we could get a picture of flowers and the jagged mountains in the background. And this young couple, they were actually riding in their flip-flops. And they stopped and she said, can I get a picture? And I said, of course. She said, well, you know, we don't have anything like this where I live. We live in a subdivision, a gated subdivision of 1 million people. And it was just a jaw-dropping moment for me. What I was doing.
All concrete jungle.
Yeah, and why I said yes to this whole deal, even though I didn't have a clue about what I was doing. I knew my intention, you know, Emily and Rebecca were talking about intention and vulnerability and how horses show up for you when you show them your intention and your vulnerability. And
you're authentic.
Yeah,
authentic, yes.
They give you 100% when you do that. And so this this second year, the horses came in so damaged that there was a lot of leading going on because Blue had a fetlock injury. They had barbed wire marks, cuts across their chest. Rio died in January. I know he starved to death because they were going over the barbed wire to get any food. And so when they came in, I just let them sleep.
This is horrible.
2 weeks. Yeah, it was horrible. So the second year, Steve sends in the other horses that I had heard about but never got to meet because they aren't rideable. And one was a great big 18-hand Frisian. And I'm not sure he's all Frisian, but that's what we guessed because of his collection and his eyes and, you know,
stature.
Yeah. The horse slobbered a lot. It was really weird. He's like my Saint Bernard, slobbered a lot. But anyway, he came in with David and the little miniature donkey, and they didn't even have names. I had to name him Spartan after Heartland because a little girl told me I should.
Oh, I like that.
She kept telling me to just rub his G-spot and everything would be fine. And I said, well, what if he bites? You know, he's biting me before I can even get there. But this is a really neat story. So I already have Coach East there. He has already taken care of the first 3 that showed up weak and hungry and tired. You know, it's an 8-hour drive in there from Utah. So they were brought in at night. Smoke, they couldn't even trailer, so he wasn't even brought in, and he's the lead gelding. And Cowboy never goes anywhere without Smoke. Wow. And some reason Cowboy was in that trailer and came in that day. So about 2 weeks later, they bring the Frisian and Dave, who's a grumpy old cow horse. And there's a reason why he's so grumpy. He's got arthritis knots all over his knees. And, you know, I can see these things. So here's the miniature donkey and we introduce them. And I wanted to talk about this reherding experience because you are always talking about how they get along. And so we finally, everybody's together in a 25-acre pasture, and I'm going out there just like I did with the first time with the first herd, the first 5. And Coach East is there, and I had such SI joint pain that I could hardly walk, and I would crawl to the barn and sit with my horse every day while he ate. until the other ones came in. And Cochise and I got really close doing this. And so I had just signed up the year before for the OTTB class, right? Couldn't afford the master membership program yet, but I noticed that you had a whip all the time, and I didn't want to use a whip because the ranch foreman was always doing the flag and chasing the horse, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like Ray or Buck Brenneman, you know, let's just move the horse with the whip. So I get my whip, and I'm all excited about having one, and I have it there, but I just barely learned how to use it. I've been practicing a little bit, and the Frisian is over here, and Cochise had already come up and said hi to me, and I'm waiting. Sundance comes to say hi to me, and then Cowboy, and then Smoke, and in the order. And pretty soon the Frisian comes in, and I put my hand out for the horse handshake, and he comes at me. And paw, I'm gonna get you, ears pinned. And I grabbed that whip, and
my.
And he was like, what? And he came at me again. This time Cochise saw it, and he comes running over, and he grabs that horse, and he takes him around in a great big circle in that 25-acre pasture, and he drops him off. And that horse did it again. And Cochise is standing over here, and there's Smoke over here. And Smoke has never showed up for me, ever, until this moment. And Smoke and Cochise come over, and they grab the Frisian, they sandwich him, and they run him around 3 times and then drop him off. And
I love it.
And I get to touch
I love it. I have stories just like that. It's real, you guys. It is real. Your horses will protect you like dogs. It is real. And what makes this so scientifically real too is, and sounds like, honestly, I'm pretending I'm some of you guys listening. If you've never experienced this or dealt with herds of horses or studied wild horses and helped to socialize your own domesticated herds, you just don't know that this stuff is real. And we all can experience it. The closer you get with your horse, the more relationship you have, and the more you consider them, and they know that they're going to protect you just like they do their own, because they do this. This is what horses do. This is the science of it. Especially when we study, and most of us never have an opportunity to study wild horses, let alone healthy domesticated herds, you know. And when you do, though, you get to see how they form specific unique friendships, but then they all know naturally, intrinsically to get along. And if a horse is aggressive, like this big 18-hand Spartan, I guess that was his name, you know, they won't let him in. He's got to earn the respect and the right to be allowed into the herd. And so, not to mention, they're protecting you just like, you know, they would protect their young, or they would protect the geldings for protecting you, Lydia, like they would protect the mares. I mean, it's just amazing. That is beautiful.
Beautiful. And so basically he becomes Cochise's side buddy, right? And actually Cochise started to pick up a few bad habits, and I kept saying, no, you're teaching him. He's not teaching you. And so by the end of the summer, I could get down his neck, and I could kind of get down his side, and I kept warning Steve to not ride this horse. And of course, Steve comes in and he tries to ride the horse, and he gets bucked off.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the whole thing just reinforces basically what I want to say about you. And you all know that I'm in 2 12-step programs, Al-Anon and AA, because I have a majorly fucked up family like you do. And there's a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it goes like this: if you
I'm not laughing at you, I just love how honest we are. I love it.
There's a saying, it goes like this. The saying is, if you want what we have, you'll do what we do, a step-by-step program. And that's what Caroline has, is a step-by-step program. And the results of that step-by-step program aren't much different than the ones I've been taking. The results are happy, joyous, and free. And that means for me and the horse. And when we listen, yeah, that's what we get. We get to be in that, right?
That's amazing. I need to take a look. Yeah, that I need to take a look at the principles, for the lack of a better word, of the 12-step AA or Al-Anon, because you've mentioned that when we've talked, that there's so many similarities to the way, and I don't know anything about them, even though I, have alcoholics in my family, and one of them is in AA, and that's all good, and he's a beautiful person and very spiritual, and that I don't know how that happened. It's pretty, I'm curious. I mean, what are the similarities? Often people shy away from joining a program, that like the mastery membership, because it's called a program, or they shy away from a method. And then I have my competitors out there who are also striking down, you don't want a method, you don't need a method. But, a method is important to learning, and it is a school of thought that I am presenting. It is an attitude. It is a mindset. It is a spirituality. It is so many things that it encompasses that come before the technique or even learning the mechanics of horsemanship. And I mean, that's what I think of when I designed my program, that it had to be in steps so that we could be inclusive, not exclusive. We could include everything, and you can't include everything if it's just a 20-minute, free training video on YouTube. Are you kidding? And you can't include everything in a DVD either. So it's like, how do you layer it so that people are thinking and studying, and like the consistency and the repetition and creating new patterns and habits and ways of being. And from what I know, those types of 12-step programs, or the 12-step program, AA, sets you up for success. It's a continuation, it's a building block, and it continually supports you during the program itself. But of course, you also have your groups. Like I keep saying, you can't do this program yourself. You still need me to coach you. Whether you come here or long distance, you still need that guidance. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
The very cool thing about this step-by-step process is it's the foundation work starts with trust, and that's how we work with another alcoholic or another person in Al-Anon, is that we work one-on-one from the place of experience, strength, and hope. So it takes somebody who's walked through it to walk another person through it, and you don't get to skip a step in order to get to the end. They're all about handling sobriety and self-regulation. So that's how they're very similar. Is your process is about self-regulation, and so is that.
Is emotional agility. Yes.
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 And I have to say, you can
self-regulation. Yeah, that's a word that yes.
You can get emotional stability with anybody's horse. Anybody's horse.
No, it's beautiful though. It's like when the program, when I started creating it many years ago, emotional agility was my key word. And that was pretty much the buzzword out there. And I say this often in my videos and podcasts, I'm really happy in webinars with you guys, how, there's more science-based evidence, and we're becoming more educated with horses as far as like self-regulation. That wasn't the word back then. But emotional agility it's really a psychological word in psychiatry. I mean, so much of my learning with horses is also my learning of people and myself. And, horses are just so similar to us emotionally. It's just blows my mind all the time. Blows my mind all the time. Every day, I am blessed. We all are. We have those opportunities in front of us, if we choose to be open to them. And listening. I love it. That is whispering.
So the day that I heard that, I'm in Boise, my husband's 120 miles away. The horses go back to the ranch, they divide themselves, it took them an hour to get them back together to feed them. And Jackie and Jay had just gotten back up there so that he could fill the big bin again. And so I go to see my horse, Cochise, at the pasture and barn he's at. And I'm standing, it's a beautiful sunny day, and I'm standing out there with him, and I'm telling him about his friends. And he gives me a hug. And then he looks over in the direction 120 miles away of the sawtooths, and then looks at me again with empathy. Yes. Yes. And I said, that's why I had
to you're making me cry.
I had to take you away from him. Yes. I had to take you away from your friends so you wouldn't have to experience this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I tell you, you know, I've said this for years, you guys, and you can really think I'm off my rocker now because I'm going to be saying it publicly right now for the first time, probably. I know I've said this with my students. I don't know if we've ever filmed me saying this, but you've heard it a million times, Sabrina. I swear horses are aliens, and they were put on this planet to save humanity if we just listen to them. I mean, if we pay attention, if we listen, if we watch them, the way that they take care of us, I mean, they just can teach us so much about ourselves. And I'm telling you, I you know, I've told you guys before, this is going to sound very hypocritical. I love people. I am here. I could tell you a story, you guys. It'll make you cry. It'll make me cry. But I don't like people, and I don't trust people because people are not strong. And most of our actions are influenced by our insecurities and our greed and our egos. I almost gave up all of this back maybe in 2014, 2015. And it was one of those moments where, you know, I was trying to develop these courses on my own, and I was still a big functioning training facility just up the road. 30 stall barn, you know, 50 acres I rented, and a house. And I had students coming all the time to study with me because I was, even though Kurt, my husband now, and I we're dating for 10 years. We've been together a while. He was in Tampa, I was in Ocala. We only saw each other on the weekends. So students would come and rent out my bedrooms and stay and yada, yada. A lot of you know that. And so horses were being shipped in all the time to work, to be retrained by me still. And I had clinics and workshops, but I was really exhausted and I felt beaten down and tired. And I was really, you know, it's hard when you want to make a big change in your life. It's hard to make that shift. It is for all of us. And I knew that I was getting saturated with problem horses, and I was getting burnout, you know, with everything, traveling. And for those of you that have ever, you know, I don't know how many people sign up that are horse trainers, or, you know, it's a tough business when you're physically working all the time. It's exhausting. And then, you know, we're filming, whoever I can get is filming. And then I'm doing all the creation, production, and editing myself at the time. So falling asleep at my computer literally every night. So I had some students in from, I can't remember, Finland. I had an apprentice with me, and Mira, lovely, lovely, lovely. And she invited, well, some of her friends and students, and this major international animal communicator was also, they were all coming to the States and to Florida. And so I was gonna meet them, and a couple of them were studying with this big animal communicator. And I question stuff like that because, you know, I trust myself and I trust what I feel and hear, but I don't publicize that, yes, I can talk to animals. But yes, I do, and I can. Mastery membership can help you. The spirituality course can teach you. But it's not something that I ever, you know, people paid me to do, and I never publicized it. So I didn't want to sign up for any animal communicator, but my heart was really heavy. And one of the students, who's amazing, and she was, as I said, studying with this major animal communicator that was visiting with me now. And she walks by Sundance's stall, and all of our stalls at the old place, all the doors were open. We just had stall guards, just a little, you know, stall guard, because we wanted that engagement. We wanted them to be able to put their heads out. We didn't want, like a prison cell. And so she walks by Sundance, and she literally, I'm with her, but she's like, do you mind if I go in your barn and I just, meet your horses and see if anybody has anything to say to me? So it was me with Susanna, this student who's amazing, and Mira, my student, and we walk in, and then I think Mia might have been with us, I'm not sure. And we walk in, and she stops by Sundance's stall. And this is a massive barn, you guys. So she's like 20 feet from, Sabrina remembers the alleys. You could drive a semi truck down both sides of the barn, because this was an old thoroughbred breeding farm, so that they needed to stack that, flushed red in the face. And Sundance is kind of standing up sleeping. She's not really paying attention to us. And so I don't say anything. She doesn't know anything that's going on in my heart, and how troubled I feel. And I feel like giving up, and I'm exhausted, and, losing faith. And she doesn't know that I've cried to my horse, and that we've had these conversations, and Sundance has spoken to me. But she goes, do you mind? And she asks for permission. And I'm like, of course not. So she goes up to Sundance, and she just feels, Sundance turns and faces her, and she feels all this heat radiating from Sundance. And Sundance is just standing there, very quietly, because Sundance is very honest and opinionated. If she does not like your energy, you will know. But she obviously liked Suzanne's. And so we're outside of Sundance's stall while she asks Sundance for permission, me, of course, to go in. And I'm like, you'll know if Sundance doesn't want you in, she'll flatten. She might do more, flatten her ears, or even do more. But she was totally quiet. She allowed Suzanne to go in. And Suzanne, just beautiful person. And she's, doing some Reiki and some, not touching Sundance, but feeling Sundance's energy field. And then she stands by her heart chakra, and we're outside the stall, because I don't want my energy field. I know all about this. I don't want my energy field or my heart. And she starts to cry, Suzanne, and she's, hovering around her heart chakra, and Sundance is really quiet. And she might have done a little bit of licking and chewing, but not too much at this point. And so I'm trying not to sob, because I'm so emotionally raw and close to what I know is happening. And Suzanne, oh my God, we all lose it, because Suzanne starts to cry. And then she says, Sundance has a message for you. Ugh. She's like, you cannot give up. Your work is more powerful. It's more for people than it is horses. She's like, you cannot stop. And then Sundance just starts licking and chewing, the whole releasing and yawning. And meanwhile, I'm bawling. My students are bawling. It was just amazing. And I mean, it's there, you guys. They have so much to offer and teach us. It's so real and raw. We just have to have the courage to go there. And that's where, we start with the program. The spirituality course is learning how to not just understand our horses and connect with them and communicate, really hear them like you, and listening, but also listening to ourselves and creating that sacred space, or that safe space, not just for our horse, but for ourselves, and to allow the horse. This is where heart math comes into it. Allow the horse to come in through the energy work, the chakra work that you're discovering and exploring and engaging in your body, is to connect to those spaces. And to, if you can't trust anyone, you can trust your horse, but you must create that sacred space. It's no different than any of these Weight Watchers, or any kind of, I guess, the 12-step programs, any of these big successful programs. It's all, you can't love anyone until you love yourself, right? So you got to take care of you. And the horse is there waiting to be a messenger, a facilitator, a vehicle, a means to helping you reach that. But we have to be, that's why it's a method. You have to be shown how to access all of this. And
I'm telling
and you have to be open.
I'm going to tell that story for Rio, the horse that died. Because when Steve came to get him, the first time and take him out, I was there, I fed them, I watched them eat, and he showed up in a trailer, an open cattle trailer, right? And he put saddles on them, and they were getting ready to get loaded with saddles on them. And Rio turned around and he looked at me and he said, I need to stay with you or I won't make it. And I just cried and I said, I'm sorry, you can't. And they got loaded into the trailer, not tied or haltered, all wearing saddles, getting ready to go down a 60-mile.
I've seen it.
I said, isn't there somewhere else to put those saddles? And he had a cattle truck kind of thing, you know, whatever. And he said, no.
Stop trailer.
Yeah, I was just like, so when he called me in January and told me Rio died, I wasn't surprised. And so you guys, you know, when
what is wrong with these people?
I don't know. Left shoes on them all winter too.
What's wrong with their mind? Oh my God! So they pack the snow?
Yep. Yeah.
Why don't they feed them? I mean,
ay is right. And so, but I have a friend that's just done that with his 2 horses this winter, and I said, call your farrier. And I'm about ready. I told Sabrina I was going to sneak over there and pull them shoes off myself.
Yeah, I love it. Yes. I don't know where they went.
His mom just died. So every Tuesday he's over going through mom's stuff. And I'm thinking about sneaking over there and saying, I think they threw their shoes. Don't worry about it now. No, I don't know. But
yeah,
you guys, we
could.
have a lot of work to do. And I also want to mention this, like, we can have an effect on other people by being an example at their barn. And that's why I always ask your other students, have you had an effect? Because what happened was Steve told me I also had to wrangle for his kids. I had to saddle the horses for them. And so they'd come over to get me when they came into town. And they're 12-year-old twins. And she shows up on her 4-wheeler and she says, Miss Lydia, will you come and help me tack up the horses? I don't know which bridles go to which horse and all of that, you know. And she's off her 4-wheeler, cute little blonde girl. She's just ready to go riding. And I said, of course, I'll be over there in just a few. And she turns around to get on her 4-wheeler and I have to stand up to do it. She turns around and she goes like this. By the way, what did you do to our horses? And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, well, they're so nice. And then a week later, I go over there to saddle them up for them again, or towards the end of the week. And Dad is putting everybody in the truck to go to the swimming hole. And he gets out of the truck after he gets everybody in there, all those kids, and he comes running back to the barn. And he goes, by the way, Lydia, what'd you do to my horses? And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, they're so nice. I said, I'll show you. I told them both, I'll show you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
People. The mindset of people.
Yeah.
That have horses. I mean, that's like stuck in the Middle Ages.
Yep. And there's still people I know who don't want me to work on their horse. They'd rather have a barbed wire bit son of a bitch do it. You know, one of my best friends, he hired a guy to train Fiddle. And Fiddle is my friend's horse. She's seen what I've been doing with you and all these classes. I study him when I'm over at their house. And basically, he sent Fiddle off for a month. And the first bit that went into his mouth was a barbed wire bit. And he was 4 years old. Yeah. And I'm like, let me try. I'll do it for free.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
So
guess what? They don't need bits. Oh, they don't even need bits. People, what's wrong with us?
I took my new halters over there and showed them to him 2 days ago, though. I was like, see these nice jewel halters? See? They feel so good. He likes marine rope. So, you know, there's always a way to get in there. And if I have to,
I call that positive manipulation. It's a win-win for everybody. Yes, yes, you work it, girl, because you are changing. You know, some of us might be like, how could you work for someone like that? But then look what you're doing. Look at all the hope that you've given these horses and a better life. And if it wasn't you, they wouldn't have you. And I mean, thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you. Oh my gosh, Lydia.
Because of you, I could really get strength and support. And that's kind of what this is about, you know. And when you get into a program or a group, the fellowship of that will grow up around you, is what I've learned over 25 years of kind of doing programs. You just learn.
Wow.
You get through attraction, that law of attraction. It took 4 years for me to leave the house I lived in for 30 years, and now I have 4 acres and my horse in my backyard. I've been self-employed my whole life and never been able to buy a house because I was self-employed, and all of a sudden everything started to change. So you girls, when you get on this deal, look out, because shit's gonna happen in a really good way.
Good shit.
Yeah.
Good shit. Like serendipity. It's like everything starts to fall into place and it's not so hard anymore. You've done the hard work. Now you're just, there's sayings for this. It's like now you're just at the right place, not just luck, opportunity meets preparation, but everything's aligned now, and it should be easier. It should be, but you got to go through the tough stuff sometimes, and don't be afraid.
I'm only going to share one more thing, because today is my husband's birthday. And 5 years ago, I took him in a trailer to Zion. We went to Zion and we camped for 3 weeks in Zion, hiking, and I got in terrible SI joint pain. And across from the RV park that we were staying was a ranch, a dude ranch. And there was 16 horses that I looked at every day. And I looked at John and I said, do you think I could ride without getting in too much trouble? So my 20th AA birthday was February 5th, and we were still there. And I said, it's towards the end of the trip. I want to go for a ride on my 20th AA birthday. And I called the dude right. And this redhead, I'm married to a redhead. This redhead answers the phone and he says, what can I do for you, ma'am? And I said, are you guys riding this time of year? And he goes, well, yeah, but we don't ride English and we don't ride Western. And I was like, you sound like my kind of guy. This is so weird. This is so weird. So we go over there and he says, you can do a 3-hour ride or a 7-hour ride. And I said, well, let's see how long I can go. Yeah. And so we got to pick our horse. They brought them all in and they all went into their own little spots. They knew where they were supposed to go. We picked our horse by getting to know them. We went into the round pen with that horse with a lunge whip and did join up very quickly.
Wow.
20 minutes. Then we saddled our own horse. Then we got on and we rode with one wrangler, and it was just John and I. And we ended up going for a 3-hour ride. We ran, it wasn't tail to nose. And when it was all said and done, I had no pain, not for 3 or 4 days afterwards. And that's how this all got started 5 years ago. And then,
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And then
How did you ride? How did you ride though, Lydia? If you couldn't ride English or Western, what did they give you?
We had
what kind of saddles?
We had a Western saddle, but what he was saying is that we don't necessarily ride traditional Western ways here, because we're going to take you on a different kind of ride. One where you know what you're doing. So we had to do cones first. Turning.
Oh, I love it.
Shifting.
I see, that's good.
Yep, we had to do cones before we went out on the trail, and he had to assess whether or not we could ride that trail. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And it was up on those mesas up in Zion. I have pictures. Wow. The wrangler, we get to the top of this mesa, and there is probably a little plateau we're all standing on our horses. We're sitting on our horses at this plateau, and it's like a thumb, and it's maybe 20 feet wide. And he gets up on the horse, he stands up on the saddle, and he does crane pose on his saddle, and I'm taking it, I'm telling him to get down. You know, I'm really smiling in the picture. He's taking a picture of John and I, and it's a steep drop off.
Oh my God.
And he was such a neat wrangler, and that's what inspired me to say yes to Steve's request. Now, I met Steve and Aaron in the bar up in the backcountry in the middle of the winter. They came in to buy the ranch and a snowmobile. They came in to look at it, a snowmobile. They got stuck on a summit called James Creek. And cell phones don't work up there, but her cell phone worked. And the bar answered and they got rescued. And John and I walked in to get a hamburger, and I met Steve, and he told us that he wanted to buy the ranch, and he told me what his dream was. And that was when this spark started in me. And then my husband had to go to work up there for me to go there. And then I had to play with 4 horses or 5 horses to buy a horse. And when I called to buy, buy Cochise, I found him when I had cataract surgery. I was laying in bed 11 o'clock at night, this gorgeous picture of this horse, this Mustang. And I went, that's my horse. And I called Matt the next morning, and only one person had called before me. And he said, well, I want to put him in on a hunting group. You know, he's going to be another hunting horse, one of my hunting horses. And I told Matt said, I decided to sell you Cochise over the phone. And I said, really? What made you do that? And he said, it's the way you said he's going to be my horse. And I said, and it's been,
I love it. I love it when it all aligns.
Yeah. I want to thank you guys so much for what you're doing. And I want to be so much.
Thank you. Thank you, love. Thank you for your continued friendship and support. And this won't be the last time we have you on as a guest. I love it. We all have so much to share. So I want to keep this going. Keep this going. Well, John's your husband.
See my face. I'm glad you all get to see my face.
Yes, I know. I recognize it from, I think, the Facebook picture. Yeah. Well, wish your husband happy birthday from all of us. All right. And thank you, love. All right, everybody. That's it for today's podcast. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for your authenticity, my dear, and your genuine generosity, everything. And we will see you guys next week. That'll be our last podcast for the month of January. And we have another guest speaker, Ariella, and it will be from Trusting. Yeah, I think this is, I think the title might change. I know we have it out there, but from trusting ourselves to asking the why and building a foundation with our horses. So, yep. So look forward to next week. All right. Thank you, love.
And
have a great day, Lydia.
Feel free to use this video however you want.
Oh, thank you, babe. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's a good, powerful, very powerful. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
All right, bye, everybody. Bye. Okay. You too, hon. Bye.